It was a cold Wednesday morning in Manhattan, December 4, 2024. The city pulsed with its usual rhythm, commuters rushing, taxis honking, steam rising from the streets. At the New York Hilton Midtown, executives in tailored suits gathered for United Healthcare's annual investor conference. Among them was Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, one of America's largest health insurance giants. At 50 years old, Thompson was a father of two, a Minnesota resident, and a man accustomed to navigating the high-stakes world of corporate healthcare. But that morning, his life would end in a hail of bullets, and a 26-year-old from a prominent Pennsylvania family would become the prime suspect in a crime that shocked the nation. Brian Thompson was shot once in the chest and once in the leg. The attack was swift, precise, and chillingly deliberate. The gunman fled into the chaos of Manhattan streets, leaving behind a scene that would ignite a 10-day manhunt, a swirl of rumors about motive, and a polarizing debate that turned a killer into a folk hero for some. This is the story of the United Healthcare CEO assassination, and the enigma of Luigi Mangione. Brian Thompson's day began like any other. At 6:40 a.m. he stepped out onto the sidewalk, heading toward the Hilton's entrance. United Healthcare, a subsidiary of United Health Group, was hosting its annual investor meeting, a showcase of profit margins and shareholder value. Thompson, a seasoned executive, was likely preparing to deliver remarks. But he never made it inside. According to police, the shooter had been lying in wait. Surveillance footage captured him pacing near the hotel for nearly an hour, masked and hooded, blending into the early morning shadows. At 6:45 a.m. he crossed the street, approached Thompson from behind, and fired a 3D printed ghost gun equipped with a silencer. The first shot pierced Thompson's back, the second his leg. He collapsed instantly. The gunman didn't hesitate, he turned and vanished into the crowd. Investigators found something unusual at the scene, bullet casings etched with cryptic messages: deny, delay, depose. To some, these words hinted at a motive, a searing critique of the insurance industry's tactics. But who would go to such lengths to send this message? Luigi Mangione was not the profile of a typical assassin. Born in 1998 to a well-known family in Glen Rock, Pennsylvania, he grew up in a tight-knit Italian-American community. His grandfather founded Mangione's Italian restaurant, a local institution, and his uncle, Dr. Nino Mangione, served as a state delegate. Luigi himself was a gifted student, valedictorian of his high school class, an engineering graduate from the University of Pennsylvania, and a young man with a promising future. But beneath the surface, something darker was brewing.
Luigi was brilliant but intense. He'd get fixated on things. Systems, injustices. You could tell he felt things deeply.
By 2024, Mangione's life had taken a troubling turn. Friends reported he'd become withdrawn, consumed by chronic pain from a spinal condition that left him reliant on medication. Online, he began railing against the healthcare system, specifically United Healthcare, which he blamed for denying claims and delaying treatments. On X, he posted cryptic messages: the machine chews people up and spits them out. Profit over lives. Was this the spark of a vendetta? Police believe Mangione spent months planning the attack. In his apartment, they later found a 3D printer and evidence he'd crafted the untraceable weapon used in the shooting. He'd also studied Thompson's schedule, pinpointing the CEO's appearance at the Hilton. On December 3, Mangione took a bus from Pennsylvania to New York City, checked into a cheap motel under a false name, and waited. Thompson's murder sent shockwaves through New York. The NYPD launched a citywide manhunt, combing through hours of footage and interviewing witnesses. One described a slim man in a black hoodie sprinting towards 6th Avenue. But Mangione had planned his escape well. He ditched the gun in a dumpster, changed clothes, and vanished into the subway system. For 10 days, Mangione avoided capture. He moved from state to state, staying in low-budget motels and using cash. There were sightings in New Jersey, Maryland, Ohio, but he remained a ghost. Meanwhile, the casing's inscriptions fueled speculation. Was this a random act of madness, or a calculated strike against corporate greed? On X, some cheered the attack, calling Thompson a symbol of a broken system. Others condemned it as cold-blooded murder. As the manhunt stretched into its second week, Luigi Mangioni's name became a lightning rod. To some, he was a monster, a privileged kid turned killer. To others, he was a martyr, a David striking at the Goliath of corporate healthcare. United Healthcare, a company with $370 billion in annual revenue, had long been a target of public ire. Stories of denied claims, delayed surgeries, and families bankrupted by medical debt flooded social media. Mangioni's attack tapped into that rage. The bullet casing's words, deny, delay, depose, echoed the language of insurance whistleblowers. Reports surfaced that Mangioni's own spinal condition, worsened by a failed surgery, had led to battles with United Healthcare over coverage. Friends said he'd spent thousands out of pocket, his pain unrelieved, his faith in the system shattered. Was this personal, or was he expressing others' anger as well? By December 13, Mangioni had made it to Altoona, Pennsylvania, a gritty railroad city 100 miles from his hometown. He'd grown a beard, ditched his hoodie for a jacket, and kept moving. But the net was closing. An observant McDonald's worker recognized him from a wanted poster and alerted the police. On December 14, after a suspenseful ambush, officers swarmed a motel parking lot and arrested him without a brief struggle. Luigi Mangioni's 10-day run was over. At 26, he faced charges of first-degree murder, criminal possession of a weapon, and interstate flight. In his pockets, police found a notebook filled with rants against United Healthcare, alongside a list of other executives' names. Was Thompson just the beginning? When Mangioni appeared for his arraignment, the scene was surreal. Dozens of supporters flooded the courthouse, chanting his name. Online, crowdfunding campaigns raised thousands for his defense, framing him as a whistleblower with a gun. Critics were disgusted. How could a murderer be celebrated so publicly? But to his backers, Mangioni wasn't a criminal, he was a symbol of resistance against a system they saw as selfish. The company called the killing a senseless tragedy and denied any wrongdoing in Thompson's or Mangioni's cases. But, who was Luigi Mangioni, really? To his family, he was a golden child, smart, driven, devoutly Catholic. To his friends, he was a loner who'd grown bitter. To the public, he was either a vigilante or a villain. As his trial loomed, investigators dug into his past, piecing together a portrait of a man undone by pain, both physical and existential. Luigi's cousin, in an interview, mentioned that he wasn't crazy. He was hurting. He'd call him late at night, talking about how the system screwed him, screwed everyone. He felt like he had to do something big. That something big took shape over years. Mangioni's spinal condition, believed to be spondylolisthesis, began in his teens after a sports injury. Surgery in 2022 left him worse off, with chronic pain and nerve damage. United Healthcare, his insurer through his job as a mechanical engineer, denied coverage for a second procedure, citing it as experimental. His notebook, recovered after his arrest, chronicled the fallout, medical bills piling up, painkillers losing their edge, and a growing obsession with the company he held responsible. Online, Mangioni found an echo chamber. X was awash with tales of United Healthcare's practices, patients denied cancer treatments, parents losing children to delayed care. He began posting under pseudonyms, his rhetoric sharpening. One entry read, "They profit off our suffering. Someone has to stop them." By mid-2024, he'd zeroed in on Brian Thompson, the public face of United Healthcare's policies. Brian Thompson wasn't just any CEO. He'd climbed the ranks at United Healthcare since 2004, becoming CEO in 2021. Under his watch, the company's stock soared, but so did its controversies. A 2023 lawsuit alleged United Healthcare used AI to wrongfully deny claims, a charge the company denied. Thompson defended the practice in interviews, calling it efficiency. To Mangione, he was the embodiment of a system that valued dollars over lives. To his loved ones, Thompson was a dedicated husband and father, a man who coached Little League and loved hiking. His death left them reeling. At his funeral in Edina, Minnesota, mourners packed the church, while outside, a lone protester held a sign, "No tears for profiteers." The divide over his legacy, and Mangione's actions, deepened. On January 15, 2025, Luigi Mangione's trial began in a blaze of media frenzy. The courtroom was a battleground of ideologies. Prosecutors painted him as a calculating killer, his defense argued he was a broken man pushed to the edge by a callous system. The evidence was damning: the 3D printed gun, the inscribed casings, the notebook detailing his plans. But Mangione's supporters saw it differently, a cry for justice in a world that had failed him. The prosecution's case was airtight. Video showed Mangione stalking Thompson for hours before the shooting. Ballistics matched the ghost gun to the casings. Witnesses described his calm demeanor as he fled. Assistant DA Michael Rossi told the jury, "This wasn't passion, it was premeditation." Mangione faced life without parole if convicted. Carla Esposito took a risky tack. She didn't deny the act, she couldn't. Instead, she leaned into Mangione's pain, calling experts to testify about his medical struggles and United Healthcare's denial of his claims. Luigi was a victim, she argued, driven to madness by a corporation that saw him as a number. It was a long shot, aiming for a lesser charge of manslaughter. In a rare move, Mangione testified. He spoke of his agony, his family's financial ruin, and his belief that Thompson's death would wake people up. "I'm not sorry he's dead," he said, sparking gasps. "I'm sorry it had to be me." The words electrified his followers, and enraged Thompson's. The trial gripped America. On X, #FreeLuigi trended alongside #JusticeForBrian. Protests swelled outside the courthouse, with frequent clashes between Mangione's backers and victims' rights groups. United Healthcare hired crisis PR, issuing statements about improving patient care while distancing itself from Thompson's killing. But the damage was done, the company's name was now tied to blood. On February 28, 2025, after 12 hours of deliberation, the verdict came. Guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted, cheers from Thompson's family, boos from Mangione's supporters. Sentencing was set for March 10, but the story was far from over. Mangione's act had lit a match, and the fire was spreading. On March 10, 2025, Luigi Mangione stood before Judge Eleanor Kaplan for sentencing. The courtroom was packed. Brian Thompson's widow, Susan, sat in the front row, clutching a photo of her husband. Mangione's mother wept silently beside his legal team. The judge's voice cut through the tension, "Mr. Mangione, you took a life with cold precision. No grievance justifies murder." He was sentenced to life without parole, shackled, and led away. But outside, the world he'd ignited refused to quiet. In the weeks that followed, Mangione's story metastasized. Across the country, vigils honored him as a martyr. In Philadelphia, a mural of his face appeared on a brick wall, captioned "The People's Avenger." On X, his manifesto, leaked from his notebook, circulated widely, its words raw and unfiltered: "They kill us slowly with paperwork. I killed quickly with lead." For many, it wasn't just about Mangione, it was about a healthcare system they felt had abandoned them. United Healthcare bore the brunt of the backlash. Boycotts spread, fueled by hashtags like #DeniedALadipose. Enrollment dropped as customers switched providers, and Congress launched hearings into insurance practices, citing Thompson's murder as a wake-up call. The company's stock fell 8% in a month, a rare stumble for a corporate titan. Yet executives doubled down, insisting Mangione was a lone madman, not a symptom of systemic rot.
Brian wasn't perfect, but he didn't deserve this. Our boys lost their father. That's what people forget. This wasn't justice. It was cruelty.
For the Thompson family, the loss was a wound that wouldn't heal. Susan spoke of sleepless nights, her son's anger, and the surreal pain of seeing Mangione lionized. Friends remembered Brian as a workaholic who'd softened with age, a man who'd planned to retire early and travel with his wife. Instead, his name became a footnote in a larger war. From his cell at Rikers Island, awaiting transfer to a maximum security prison, Mangione remained defiant. He declined interviews but wrote to followers, urging them to keep fighting. His case inspired copycat threats. Executives at Aetna and Cigna beefed up security after receiving letters echoing his rhetoric. The FBI opened a task force to monitor what they called healthcare vengeance crimes. Luigi Mangione's act didn't just end a life, it unleashed a reckoning. By March 2025, his name was a rallying cry for healthcare reform. Congressional hearings dragged insurance executives into the spotlight, their polished defenses crumbling under questions about claim denials and AI algorithms. Senator Elizabeth Warren waved Mangione's manifesto like a weapon, demanding, "How many more must die before you stop prioritizing profit?" The public watched, riveted, as a system long shielded by complexity faced unprecedented scrutiny. On the streets, the anger boiled over. Protests swelled in cities from Los Angeles to Boston, drawing nurses, patients, and activists. Some carried Mangione's image, others rejected him but embraced his cause. A coalition called Patients Over Profits emerged, pushing for a public insurance option, a radical shift once dismissed as fringe. Polls showed trust in private insurers at an all-time low, with 62% of Americans citing Thompson's killing as a tipping point. For United Healthcare, the fallout was existential. The company rolled out reforms, faster claim reviews, a patient advocacy hotline, but critics called it damage control. Competitors followed suit, fearing they'd be next. Meanwhile, Thompson's death cast a long shadow over the C-suite. CEOs across industries boosted personal security, some even stepping down, spooked by the specter of targeted violence. Mangione seeped into pop culture. Songs, podcasts, even a Netflix docuseries pitched his tale as a modern Robin Hood saga. Merchandise, T-shirts with "Deny Delay Depose," sold out online. Academics debated his legacy, was he a terrorist or a revolutionary? At Penn, his alma mater, students held a symposium titled "The Ethics of Vengeance," splitting the room between condemnation and uneasy sympathy. Amid the noise, Brian Thompson faded from the narrative. His grave became a footnote, visited by family while the world argued over his killer. Susan Thompson filed a wrongful death suit against United Healthcare, alleging its practices provoked Mangione, a long shot, but a desperate bid for closure. Legal experts doubted it would succeed, but it kept the story alive. And Luigi? He watched from behind bars, a cipher in his own myth. His letters hinted at no regrets, only a hope that others would finish what I started. So, what do you think of this event? Was justice rightly served, or do you think Luigi deserves another chance? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.